Welcome inside the RX Muscle Studios in New York for another episode of Iron Debate. We are back right here on rxmuscle.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi, brought to you by Quest Nutrition. Visit questnutrition.com. Special episode, a lot going on right now in the world of the bodybuilding and fitness, the IFBB, and of course, the Olympia is only 42 days away. Hard to imagine. But as you just saw in that graphic, RX Muscle is going to have wall-to-wall coverage of the Olympia, athlete interviews, all the important things leading up to the show. And then, of course, in Vegas, just as we did the last year, just as we did in 2013 and 2012, we are going to have wall-to-wall coverage as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, again, the Olympia only 42 days away, and a lot of excitement, a lot of reasons for excitement, and, of course, a lot of planning, a lot of execution on our end.
Always got to be strategic, and like I said, this is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, and obviously we'll be there in full force and setting up right now and over the last couple days how we're going to best cover the show to give you guys unique coverage. And every year I try to figure out something a little different. The last 2 years we've done the live stream from the show, from the room, where we've critiqued what's going on as people actually were at the show. This year I think we're going to be at the show. We have some surprises as far as how we're going to do our coverage. And I'm excited because, like I said, I think this year is kind of wide open. Phil Heath showed some vulnerability last year. Sean Roden has improved tremendously. Dennis Wolf, obviously Kai Green, always a big factor. And, it's going to be interesting to see who comes out with the Santa this year.
So, of course, for all the latest updates, follow us on rxmuscle.com. If you're not already a member on the Muscle Central Forum, it is free to register. And, of course, follow us on Instagram on official_RxMuscle, our Twitter account, and our official Facebook page. Let's introduce our two combatants for tonight. First, from Portland, Maine, the man they call the technician, Chris Aceto. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Chris, of course, excited about his prospects going in. Chris, we understand you're going to be in the show. Last year you were out there with us doing the broadcast. This time you hope to be actually inside the Orleans Arena.
Yeah, if you add up, Sid, like the number of people I've helped for that show and I haven't been able to actually see them on stage live in the last 2 years. It's like, I think it's 18 people. I mean, it's the same people every year, but if you took this guy, 2 12s, and these guys, 2 or 3 guys in the open, and then multiply it by the number of years we haven't got press passes, so I've watched it from a remote location in Las Vegas. It's been disappointing, so this year it's going to be exciting, and we had the best coverage anyway, even without being there. So imagine what's going to happen this year. I'm excited.
Of course, Chris coaching Sean Roden, one of really many people's favorites to go in this year and pull off what would be a shocker and dethrone Phil Heath and Kai Green and get himself into that top 2 spot. Of course, many people thought he won it last year, but of course, Chris Aceto coaching Sean Roden, he's going to have a front row seat coming up this year in Vegas. We now go to Mexico and welcome in a man who many RX Muscle fans hold near and dear to their heart, the man they call Boss Number 2. It is our pleasure to welcome in for the first time in Iron Debate, John Romano. John, how you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good. John, we understand you too are going to be joining us in Vegas for the RX Muscle coverage.
Give me one appearance on Heavy Muscle Radio, and I go right to the ticket agent and buy a ticket to Vegas. Natural.
Well, that's exactly how it works here on RX Muscle. Of course, this is all debate, no agreements, full force opinions from Dave, from John, and from Chris. We're going to start with our first topic. Again, you as the audience have a chance to contribute with your thoughts and your questions. If you're watching on the live stream box, on the live chat, on the side box, you can chime in with your questions. We will be taking your questions towards the end of the show. We now go to our first question. And following up on the show that we had yesterday, live with the debut episode, we had an athlete, Janae Marie Kroc, formerly known as Matt Kroc, a bodybuilder, a transgender athlete. And one of the topics that came up was whether or not a transgender athlete, in particular a male going to a female, should be allowed to compete in the female divisions, be it in the physique competition, be it in a power lifting competition. So that is a topic of conversation. It is a hot topic of conversation, given that this is a much more prominent topic. So John, we're going to go to you first on this one. Should a transgender athlete, male going to female, be allowed to compete in female divisions in physique and powerlifting?
Is it one of Chris's clients?
I think Farah's running that one.
Are we being specific or is this general?
Sorry?
Are we being specific or is this a general question?
Well, let's start general. In general, again, if a male athlete goes female, should they be allowed to be competing in a physique and a powerlifting competition?
Well, my general answer will be the same as my specific answer. The answer is absolutely not.
Why is that?
Oh, I never thought you'd ask.
Wasn't expecting that follow-up.
Well, because they're not, because genetically, chromosomally, they're not women. So you can hack off body parts and replace them with other ones and make all kind of Frankenstein adjustments that you want. You're not going to make a woman. You might make something that looks like a woman, but it's not a woman. So if you're not going to turn Y chromosomes into X chromosomes, then no, absolutely not.
Chris, let's go over to you for this one. Again, the question, should a male transgender athlete now as a female, should they be allowed to compete in the women's bracket as far as physique competitions and powerlifting goes?
Well, first of all, I thought I was debating John Meadows. I just learned at the last minute that I was debating John Romano. So I have my threshold of brain activity on a lower level than needed to debate with John. So let me just sip my intro debate drink and say that, I think John nailed it, because that would have been that was my answer. And I texted that to Dave when he was doing the interview the other day, is that you can't forget about that pesky XY chromosome, which means you still are male. So, but I think the litmus test would be to play it this way. If Cher's daughter, who's now a man, decided to play for the NFL, we'd all laugh. Would say there's no, or if Cher's daughter who became a man was going to do a physique competition or something physical, would say, well, he's really not a man. So, there'd be no threat by the competition, I would think, that, okay, this lady who became a man is going to be competitive with me in my activity. That's not to say, like, a lot of women tennis players couldn't, like, Serena Williams crush men tennis players, and that doesn't mean there's not unbelievable female athletes. But I would think that men would say there's less of an advantage because they're, quote, kind of still a woman. So the flip side is a man becoming a woman through transitioning,
sure,
or as John put it, chopping off body parts or adding them to. I think he still, or she still, has some type of inherent advantage in general over the average female who was never a male in the first place.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this angle. We're asking you whether you think it should happen. Will it happen? Do you see this as something
of course it will happen.
Okay.
Of course it will happen. No,
and
there's no doubt.
Do you think that the
no doubt
governing bodies are going to allow
listen,
this kind of a...
There's absolutely no doubt, period. It will happen and it'll happen for this reason. It'll happen for the same reason I just lost in court over somebody who said they fell in my building. Lawyers.
Right.
Lawyers will make it a legal issue, and they will say, they will press and push to open up female sport activities for transgendered people. So, I mean, that's just going to happen. So, and that's going to happen a lot faster than that. That will probably be happening within 18 months, I bet.
Well, let's go back over to you, and just piggybacking off what Chris said. And I think there are many in the audience right now who feel that at some point this will be brought to the forefront. At some point, there will be a transgender athlete that will file to compete in either a female division, male division, whichever is the opposite. How do you think the sport, how do you think the bodybuilding community is going to react to that?
I think they're going to react the same way Chris and I just reacted to it. It's cut and dry. I don't think any lawyer is going to be able to talk their way into re-engineering genetics. It's a done deal. It's you're born a woman, you're a woman. You're born a man, you're a man. You can do cosmetically anything you want, but the bottom line is the body responds, the body reacts. Cascades are the way they are for your specific sex. So if you have double X chromosomes, you're a woman. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about that.
Right.
So
but given
I don't think any legal wrangling about it is going to change anything. I think, the topic's definitely going to come up. Maybe even sooner than 18 months. We already have enough. We already know several people in the industry who are transgender or gender dysmorphic. So it's definitely plentiful. It's plentiful enough that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Well, again,
my point was that you will see in sports transgendered people competing as their new gender.
Mm-hmm. Sports in general, yes.
Yeah.
But bodybuilding's not really a sport. It's a pageant. We're espousing physical attributes. We're not doing an athletic endeavor. We're not doing anything athletic in a bodybuilding contest that requires athletic talent to the degree. I'm not saying none, but certainly not to the degree of a Serena Williams or a Magic Johnson or anything like that. So you're not arguing over athletic prowess. You're arguing over genetics. So no, I mean you're gonna definitely see in sport. Yes, there's going to be a lot of it in sport, but specifically to our little area here, I think it's completely a unique situation because we're not talking about athletic ability. We're not talking about talent. We're talking about genetics and the exploitation of them. So I think in general sports, yes. Bodybuilding, no.
Dave, let's go to you for the final word again. Should a transgender athlete, in particular, a male going to female, be allowed to compete in a female bracket for physique or power building, or powerlifting rather?
Well, I think first of all, what you need to address is, I think if a transgender, person starts transitioning early, prepubescent, meaning before they hit puberty. Like there's a TV show on right now. It's they got a girl or boy who it's always wanted to be a girl, and they put him on androgen blockers and estrogen replacement. From this moment, the boy girl hit puberty, so she's never really became a boy. So they obviously sued the school district so she can play soccer with the girls, and she's not any better than any of them. So I think that if someone transitions early on in life and never really develops the male, characteristics, I think that it's a more even playing field. Having said that, moving to the physique division where we compete, and whether it be a man who becomes a woman and wants to compete in women's physique, say, or figure. I don't think it's going to be a problem because everyone thinks it's like kind of a joke, the person doesn't look that good. The minute you get one amazing person who's transitioned who looks amazing and now is challenging some of the top girls in the sport, that's when all the legal and buzz is going to come up and everyone's going to start debating. That's what I believe.
Well, Dave, just what Chris said, at some point you're going to have a legal case and there's going to be a smart lawyer that, again, if their client wants inclusion in a specific division, it's going to happen at some point. But my question to you, given that is a legitimate possibility, and let's just assume for argument's sake that it will happen, how is the bodybuilding and fitness community going to respond to that kind of a thing?
Everyone will be fine except the guy who loses, or the guy who loses to, or the girl who loses to the transgender. I remember Nasser El-Somebody, the late Nasser El-Somebody, coming up an escalator at the Dallas Convention Center with me, and he was all, this is a guy who probably should have won the Mr. Olympia in 1997. He was all dejected, and I said, "What's the matter, Nasser?" He's like, "Well, I just lost to a blind man." And he did. There was a blind pro bodybuilder, Greg Rando, who got a better call out than Nasser. And Nasser was almost the former Mr. Olympia. He won the Arnold Classic, and he lost to this blind guy. And he was infuriated. And he probably deserved to lose to the guy. He just didn't look that good. But the minute some top athlete loses to one of these people, he's going to be calling, hey, that's not really a woman, that's a guy, and that's going to start a whole rigmarole. So it's like I said, until we get a fantastic, transgender athlete, I don't think that anyone's going to give a crap.
We'll move on now to our next subject. Again, you're watching Iron Debate on rxmuscle.com. If you have questions, ask on the right-hand side in the live chat box. We are going to be taking your questions later on in the show. We now move over to the actual shows. Again, we are in the thick of the IFBB contest schedule. And of course, like us, RX Muscle, there are quite a few media organizations in this industry eager to cover these shows. Obviously, when you have a build-up to the Olympia, which athlete is going to have a shot at qualification for an Olympia ticket, which amateur is going to have a shot, or a master is going to have a shot at a pro card. These are things that people want to know. There are people sitting on edge, waiting, watching, looking at their Twitter feed, looking at forums, looking for events. That can't be accomplished if the press isn't gained access into these events. Lately, a trend has been these show promoters have been asking for money in order to get a press pass. Dave, you have more on a recent situation that involved payment in order to get press access to a show.
Well, I mentioned this on Heavy Muscle Radio and to Chris when we were speaking this past Monday, that I was a little upset. First of all, I wanted to start out, and I said this on the radio, I have nothing but utmost respect for Gary Udit, who promotes the Masters Nationals, the North American Championships, the Pittsburgh Pro with Jim Mannion. And, they do a great job. Gary's been a bodybuilder himself. He's a great judge. But for some reason, they have decided to institute a policy whereby if you want to, gain access to their show for press credentials, they're charging now. Now, we were given press credentials for the North American, and I wasn't even going to go because we've really cut back our coverage quite a bit. I cut back. We've cut back quite a bit because it's expensive. But I had a sponsor who was willing to sponsor our coverage of North American, and I contacted Gary, and he said, "You can have press passes, but we're charging $1,500 now." I was kind of taken aback because obviously it's very expensive to fly out to these shows. You pay for hotels, airfare, food, transportation. And then, if you get a sponsor, that barely covers that, So for me, it's cost prohibitive. If I'm going to be charged $1,500 to cover a show, I can't do it. I just can't legitimize it. And it's too much, to make it worth our while to go out there, especially if I'm not going to cover a show and lose money. There's no business model on that. So I was kind of upset. And I went back and forth and I talked to Gary about it. And I just thought, him and I saw it differently. He thought it was bringing, a lot of traffic to my site. And I tried to explain it's really not bringing in more dollars for us, but I said the athletes do really like it. They expect me there. They want the feedback. They like the play-by-play we do, the wrap-ups, the interviews. So I was upset with the whole thing, and so I really would like to know what people think, and I even challenge people to send Gary emails and give them your opinion, because I don't necessarily know that these promoters understand how important it is to the competitors.
So, Chris, we go to you first. Is this a practice that should be acceptable as far as charging media organizations for press coverage at these shows?
No, I agree with that 100% wholeheartedly. No, I'm kidding. I guess, the litmus test is for press passes is the press conference. Do you have to pay to be press at the press conference? Because if it's the idea that there's a press conference, or the word press connotates just what it is, reporting in press. I mean, if you're going to charge for it, then it's like a private party, and it defies the idea of having, quote, a press conference, a conference where you introduce the athletes, and you build up the show, and then people cover it, versus you introduce the athletes, you build up the show, and people cover it for a cost. Because the minute you pay something, you become a biased participant. You know what I mean? Because there may be an idea of, I'm paying for it. Some people didn't pay for it. That means they didn't get it. So maybe I should cover it in a way that is less opinionated, which could translate into being less toxic than if I was just showing up as the press.
John, let's go over to you again. Your thoughts on show promoters charging media organizations for press access to shows?
Well, if in my experience of almost 30 years in this industry, I've come to surmise that the powers that be would probably prefer that the contest be held in a dark auditorium somewhere with nobody watching. Because they just, it's anytime we've tried to get anything having to do with promoting the industry, promoting them, promoting athletes, it's always a hassle. We're always denied press passes. Press passes are hard to get. When you get a press pass, you're in the corner underneath somebody's chair where you can't see. The press is generally treated like we're not really wanted. And I think this adding to this conundrum is the fact that this is the only industry in the world where the press has to pay for a press pass. It's unprecedented, no pun intended. But it's ridiculous. How can you invite an unbiased media to cover an event and then expect them to pay an exorbitant amount of money? It's like, what's it, 5-6 times what a ticket costs? It's out of sight. And the problem is there's not a shared perception. The promoters perceive that they're doing us a favor by giving us press passes. And the reality is that it's not a favor to us. We're doing our job by promoting your event so more people see it. We promote it in a way where we bring all of our experience, all of our personalities, all of our insight. It's unique. It's different from everybody else's. We have a following. People want to hear us. People want to hear Chris, Dave, me. They want to hear what we think. They want to hear what we think in an unbiased, unslanted way. They want to know what we really think. Now, if our audience, like to Chris's point, if the audience knows that we had to fork over $1,500 a pop to come and see this show, well, we're going to be on our best behavior because we don't want to get thrown out of there. We don't want to do anything wrong. We don't want to make sure that we don't lose that press pass that we paid $1,500 for because we're not going to get a refund. So, I think it softens the coverage for the average person, and it's did they really need it? I mean, there's 1,000 people in the show getting charged $350 a piece. That's $350,000 the promoter's going to make on entry fees, plus all the tickets he's going to sell to friends and family and of associates of the competitors. They really need $1,500 from the press. I mean, really? It's not like we're making money on this. It's more of a service to the community. And, to be charged for it is just like the exact same thing as saying, we really don't want you there.
Did you get a good look there? Yeah, Dave, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think that one more thing I wanted to say that, what's going to happen is only the people who can afford to cover the shows will be there, and that's going to really bias the coverage, obviously, because we know the only person who could afford to pay to go there, which is Steve Blackman right now, and the only reason he would even fork over the money, and he shouldn't out of principle, is because he doesn't. It's like the kid who doesn't want to lose his ice cream cone, So it bothers me, it hurts me, really, because I do know that the athletes like to have us there, and like I said, I understand when you run a show, the promoter of the show makes the rules, and I'm willing to adhere to those rules. So I understand that it's not for me to say one way or another. However, I just think it's sad that the press doesn't have free access to the shows anymore.
Chris, I wanted to go back to you because this is a point you've been consistent about this over the course of this show when we brought up topics relating to coverage, to overall attendance, overall following, the lifestyle of a bodybuilder, and you've often referenced the future of the sport and where the sport is headed. What kind of a negative impact do you see the limitation of press on these shows having on the overall following of the bodybuilding sport?
Well, the following, the show or the shows or a show or the Olympia or North America, clearly they're going to have their get some publicity and benefit through Facebook and Instagram, and there's that type of publicity and there's that type of retail press, so to speak. But you know, I think the loss here, the immediate loss and the future loss is that shows like this do benefit from me, Dave, John Romano, Lonnie Teeper, Cormier, standing in the parking lot after the Olympia in 90-degree temperature, right after prejudging and giving our unbiased 100% guttural reaction to the way Phil really looked, the way Kai really looked, the way Roden really looked, the comparisons, how we think the judging should go, may go, how we think people can change in the next 24 hours to move up and not move up. I think it's that type of analysis that is exciting. It's truthful. It's what people love. I know that for a fact because I use that reference because I can remember doing the 2010 Olympia, doing the wrap up in the parking lot. And, we had our own crowd of 500 people watching it live. Just people milling around in the parking lot. There they are doing the review. And I know for a fact that the guys in the show love it because people come up to me after and say, you know what, Chris? Or they text me, I hate what you said about me because you're wrong. And I said, you know what? That's your opinion. And that's what makes it so exciting. And I said, you know what? And it's just my opinion. If you watch the tape closely, Dave disagrees with me. So it's that type of real hardcore reporting that people like, and I think there's a huge benefit for it to the show because as John said, bodybuilding's more pageantry, meaning it's opinions. We're not talking about these guys. This guy ran a 10.4 whatever 100, and this guy ran a 9.9 100, and the event's over. How long can you talk about it really? This is a subjective sport that, because it's subjective, it lends itself to opinions, and it's people's opinions that others like to digest and think about and mull over. And that's what makes our coverage always the best. No one can beat that wrap up of those big shows. MD can send out 400 people, all the legends, the Sean Rays, the Wheelers, and I have great respect for them as bodybuilders, but their analysis is, can't hold a 2-pound dumbbell compared to ours.
John, let's go back.
It's just the uniqueness of our shtick.
Absolutely. John, you've been around the sport for, as you said it, over 30 years. And so you've trained athletes. You have covered the sport as an analyst. You have been to the shows and experienced the atmosphere. And last but not least, you're part of a media organization, as in RX Muscle. Let's get a thought from you as far as how you project this practice, if it holds, with show organizers charging media organizations to cover their show, how that's going to affect coverage over the next 5, 10, 15 years and beyond.
Well, it creates the same kind of stricture as the 72-hour contract or the 48-hour contract. What this is designed to do is build another fence around the media. Where the media is disjoined from talking to certain people. Now we're disjoined from covering certain events unless we pay. We're disjoined from covering certain events just because they don't like us. I mean, it all boils down to what the public is going to perceive as fair, equitable, and in the sense of the audience, what's practical. I mean, an audience, a viewer should have the freedom to choose what media outlet they want to use to cover their show, what media outlet they want to watch to cover it for their show coverage. The audience should be able to choose who they get to listen to. The audience should be able to have choices over over, what their, feedback is from the various shows. We have fans. Chris has fans. Dave has fans. They want to hear us. Now we got to say, well, we're not allowed to talk to this guy. If we're going to talk to this guy, we got to pay $1,500. We can't stand here. If we stand there, we get thrown out. It's this big ball of stricture, and eventually you're going to have, you're going to have the fox locked in the hen house with a microwave. You're going to have one entity reporting on the contest. They're going to report on it however slanted it's going to be. We'll never know because it's going to be a monopoly, and people are going to be disenfranchised with it because they're not going to be able to see their favorite commentators. They're not going to be able to listen to their favorite media outlet. They're going to be huddled in this little box and forced to go over there. And if they don't want to go, they don't have to go. Which all it means is down the road, less eyeballs on the sport. More fences equals more, compartmentalization, more stricture, more boundaries, more things to get around, more hassle for people that are trying to get into this business. What would a new media outlet have to do now? You couldn't start it now. RX Muscle today, if we were just starting today, we'd have a big mountain in front of us that we didn't have when we started, mainly because of all the stricture involved in doing something as simple as covering a contest for the public. So I think playing forward, this is going to be very detrimental to the sport because you're going to have fewer and fewer media outlets willing to fork over the expense, foot the bill for coverage when you can get it over there. So I think it's bad all around.
That's going to do it for this second topic of discussion. We're going to step aside, but when we come back, we have a couple of very, very compelling topics, including the recent news coming out this week, muscular development dropping Justin Compton. Now consider Justin Compton, who many argue could be the future of the sport, dropped from his media contract. What exactly does that mean for the bodybuilding media industry? Again, if you want to chime in, you can join us on the Muscle Central forum on rxmuscle.com. If you're not already a member, it is free to register, or you can ask us questions on the live chat box on the right hand of the screen if you're watching us live on livestream.com. We'll be back on rxmuscle.com.
Paired with rich cream for an indulgent escape. A shake so delicious, you just can't put it down. Packing 21 grams of protein in every scoop. Say hello to banana cream from Quest Nutrition. For 7 delicious reasons to love your protein powder, visit questnutrition.com.
IFBB4 Akeem Williams, what species are you?
The decadent taste of salted caramel. A thick, creamy texture with a silky, smooth finish. The best tasting shake on earth.
A little help here, Gio.
And a whopping 22 grams of protein in every scoop. Say hello to salted caramel. Another delicious reason to love your protein powder. Visit questnutrition.com.
The potato chip. It's been an evolution. First, they were fried. Then, they were baked. They've even been popped. But nobody's perfected what's on the inside. Until now. Quest protein chips. 21 grams of protein and only 5 grams of carbs. Chips aren't what they used to be.
This is Rich Piana. and you're watching RXMuscle.com.
Iron Debate on RxMuscle.com. Glad you can be joining us on this Thursday night. Again, reminder, Olympia coverage is going to kick off next week, leading all the way up until Olympia weekend. 42 days till we see you in Las Vegas. As Dave teased at the top of the broadcast, we have some surprises in store for you. Of course, during the weekend, RX Muscle is a place where you want to be for all your wall-to-wall coverage. MuscleCentralForum.com, Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com to be part of all the banter, be part of all the chatter and conversation that's going to take place in the next 42 days. We pick up now with a topic that was relevant last year and a topic that is sort of, a division rather, that has had its ups and downs, and now people are uncertain about its future. The women's bodybuilding division, which last year the big story was Iris Kyle winning her 10th title in a row, announcing her retirement, and then a short while later we find out that the event in and of itself is not going to be featured at the 2015 Olympia. Now, there have been many efforts. Wings of Strength, the organization, has been at the forefront trying to restore the bodybuilding division in some way, shape, or form. Well, their big event later this month, August 20th in San Antonio, the Rising Phoenix Women's Bodybuilding Championship, one of the events at the overall show, is going to essentially be the centerpiece event for the women's bodybuilding division. Now, here's the kicker. The prize money, $50,000 for the winner, in addition to a brand new car. Now, the vehicle is to be determined as we last checked on the website, but the point is $50,000 and a brand new car. So now, the question is this. When you compare those winnings to last year's 2014 Miss Physique Olympia, which was Juliana Malacarni, Dave, if you want to verify, I believe she won $15,000, correct?
Correct.
And in the entire division, it was $20,000. So here's the question, and John, we're going to go to you first. This is a two-part question. We'll start on this angle. Juliana Malacarni, would she not be better served, as far as the money goes, to not go to this show August 20th and try to compete in this show, which the prize money dwarfs what she would potentially win at the Olympia?
She can do whatever she wants. But the idea here is that if she did do that, I think it would be a giant mistake, because her physique is not the physique that they want. And it's, women's physique was designed for the women that were too big for figure and too small for bodybuilding. So we have women's physique. Now, women's physique has become the de facto home for the disenfranchised female bodybuilders that have nowhere to go because there's no more Ms. International and no more Ms. Olympia. So to take a physique athlete and put him in what is supposed to be now billed as the Zenith women's bodybuilding event is counter to the intent. What I believe they're doing here, and I'll tell you why. What I believe they're doing is the whole reason there's prize money that far exceeds the Olympia, the reason there's a car, there's a reason that this is not being held under the auspice of the Olympia, is because it's being supported by the faction, how to put this delicately, the faction of fans that are fanatical enough to want to be able to do this. We refer to them, by another name, the guys that follow, extreme examples of women's bodybuilding. I believe that's what they want in Phoenix Rising. They want the Iris Kyles. They want the what's her name? Leshevsky. Not Kim Shizevsky, the current one. What's her name?
Debbie.
Somebody?
Huh? Debbie Leshevsky.
Yeah, Deb Leshevsky. Her, the whole lineup that used to be in the Miss Olympia doesn't belong in physique. So to take the physique winner and put her in the Olympia and put her in with the bodybuilders is a bad idea. They should not co-join the two events. They should leave them separate so that there is a classic, beautiful example of the female physique. And then you can have over here, you can have the extreme, way out of there, example of female bodybuilder. I think that's what they want. The reason why it would have been, if they wanted to just create a division to support the bigger physique girls, then it would be, why not just bring the Olympia back? Why have this new show called Phoenix Rising? It's a new show, it's a new idea because it's being supported by, the fans, let's call them, who weren't supporting women's bodybuilding. So I think they're opening the door here. There's going to be the phrase toned down is going to be conspicuously missing forever from women's bodybuilding with Phoenix Rising. It's going to go the other way.
Well,
you think it's going to go completely the other way.
Chris, let's get you in on this again.
Tone down. That word's been around for 30 years. Tone it down. Tone it down. We will. We'll tone it down.
Chris, this also stems from the fact that at this show, there is no Iris Kyle, obviously announcing her retirement after winning her 10th straight Olympia title last year, and then Alina Popa, with the injury, she won't be there. So, even if that's not the look that they're looking for, again, the context of this discussion is, wouldn't it be worth Juliana Malacarni's time to enter this kind of an event where the prize money, the notoriety is bigger?
Yes, it is. Here's why. I went to the New York Pro. I've said this on the radio before, and I came in late, and I sat with Dave and Amanda, and they were doing play-by-play, and I turn on my little iPad and try to do play-by-play, but it's it's got like heat-sensitive. You push the buttons and you can't do it. I need an actual like computer, like keypad. So, anyways, and I turned to Dave or to Amanda. And I said, I thought they weren't having female bodybuilding. She said, this is physique. I said, you're out of your mind. Striated glutes everywhere. The word toned down, how do you say it down there in Mexico where all the rapists and diseased folks are, according to Trump? How do you say toned down? Nobody was toned down. It was like, I was like clapping, and because I I thought, John, I was at a female bodybuilding show with everyone had hit their peak. But they weren't quite, but almost as muscular as, quote, female bodybuilders. So I really and truly thought I was watching the bodybuilding, and it was the physique. And I said, wow, that was quick. Just 2 years ago, we were watching shows where girls looked like Cleopatra. They had like abs and shoulders and fat on their ass. And not fat on their ass, but you know what I mean. They didn't have like peeled glutes,
right?
They had like separated quads with fullness to them. And then here we are, 48 months later, with like peeled glutes and like abs sunken into their their spine.
Well,
so Juliana Malacarni she packs a ton of muscle, and I got my calculator. So I am adding up the money that Jose won first place in a bodybuilding show this year, the Arnold.
Sure.
John De La Rosa got first place in the Chicago show. And Guy Sistinino got first place in the 212 show, and it comes up to be like 28 grand for the total of those three shows. So if someone can win 50 grand and wants to call themselves a professional, I would think that Juliana Malacarni in a show like this would have enough muscularity to her, enough flow to her. Maybe she'd get knocked down for not having the peeled glutes. But the girls with the peeled glutes usually have like straight up and down legs or boxy midsection, or there's something funky about the flow.
Well, Chris, I want you to hold that thought for the second point off this topic. But Dave, I want to go to you first. Again, the topic or the question is, for Juliana Malacarni, would it be worth her time to enter this show, Rising Phoenix, where the overall grand prize, $50,000 and a car, which dwarfs her $15,000 and no car from her 2014 winnings?
Yeah, well, I'm the one who actually suggested this because I was looking at the lineup and I'm saying to myself, there's no Iris Kyle. There's no Elena Popa, who was second at the Olympia last year. I'm looking at Deb Lashevsky, who was third. I'm like, wait a minute. Let's compare Deb Lashevsky to Juliana Malacarni. Well, they're about the same size. Maybe Deb is a little more densely muscled, but they're about the same height. Juliana flows better. She's got, a more aesthetic look, if you might say. I'm like, she could beat her. I'm like, well, who can't Juliana Malacarni beat? I don't know if there's anyone she can't beat. So I'm saying to myself, the worst she could do is top three, and she'll probably make as much money as she's making at the Olympia. I still think she should do the Olympia. She's the Olympia champ, but why not just, have fun with it a little bit, make a few bucks for herself? And I'm sure as John put it very politely, the bodybuilding fans would have no problem with Juliana being there because she's got more than enough muscle and freakiness for them to accept her in that lineup.
So, this brings up the next part of this topic of conversation, and that is, again, you've seen where the women's bodybuilding division has gone since Iris Kyle made that declaration after winning her 10th straight, and that is, well, you see it, it's not going to be on Olympia weekend. So clearly, in a way, it's going to be out of the shadows, out of the spotlight off Olympia weekend, and it's going to have its own show. This brings up another point of the conversation, and we've had it on the men's side with men's physique, the way that it's evolved, and the 212 division, and whether or not there should be another men's division, maybe a classic division. Well, the question is this: given where women's bodybuilding is now, and given the look that you've seen women's physique trend towards lately, should there be a merger? Chris, we'll start with you on that one.
A merger between what and what?
Women's bodybuilding and physique. Should there essentially be another division, or should the two just...
No. I think if we're talking about growth, the growth of the sport, I love the idea of women's physique. I just don't like the idea of them taking an eraser and erasing boundaries. Someone has to step in and say to these women's physique ladies, excuse me, we are not going to reward striated glutes, and if you have them, they talk about, there's been talk about you can't have a gut in a men's bodybuilding show, or we're going to mark you down. How about mark you out? That will get rid of it. So, if you're going to use that as a test or as a guideline, I think you need to come up with the template for what a woman's physique body looks like and reward her and the shapes that look like her every single time. And that might mean giving first place in smaller shows or local shows or NPC shows to people who may not look like they have enough muscle. And, because if you continue to reward dense, hard muscle, then we are going to just be talking in circles about what's the line between women's bodybuilding and women's physique. Women's bodybuilding is easy to draw a distinction. Women's physique can be easy, but you have to be consistent in dropping the hammer and say to people personally, excuse me, so-and-so, the reason you didn't place high is we don't like it. You're going too far. It's called You Are Women's Physique. We created this division to allow the sport to grow, and look how fast it has grown. It's like, it's on a trajectory that's been like straight up, but now it's going to tip over on itself because you have, and I'm not talking about Juliana Malacarne, you have the New York Pro where just an infinitesimal amount of crazy hard glutes and hamstrings that, it's admirable. But after that comes striated triceps, and I saw striated pecs at that show. I'm thinking, this is not what I think I got excited about 2 years ago when I said, oh my God, they're going to start women's physique. And as soon as I saw it, I said, well, this is a great division. But now it's like, well, which one's which? If you take the pictures and look at who's winning now versus 2 years ago, it's ridiculous, the level of muscularity. So do you think the competitors are going to say all of a sudden, oh no, okay, we're all set, we're going to keep it right here? They're going to keep pushing the envelope, because people want to look like Juliana, but she is the Corey of our day.
Chris, I want to get.
Corey had height, width, flow. She had enough muscularity in her time, and people who wanted to chase her ended up looking like, wacky, but still couldn't beat her.
I wanted to get Dave back in. We did get a comment from our good friend Christian Duke, and he says that the reason why so much prize money is because the promoter did not pay for the rights for Miss Olympia. Dave, you want to respond to that?
Well, it's not called the Miss Olympia. So when they held it at the Olympia weekend and the Weeders put on the Olympia, they don't have to pay for a sanction because that's who runs the Olympia. the Phoenix Rising people, the Rising Phoenix, promoters, the Wings of Strength people wanted to put on a show. So yeah, they didn't want to pay. They didn't want to pay the sanction fee for the Olympia because it would take away from the money they would give to the girls. But they still didn't have to give $50,000 in a vehicle to the girls. That's still a lot of money. What show anywhere in the world, pro show, gives away that much money aside from the Arnold and the Olympia? It doesn't exist. So they're still putting up that much money, so it's still relevant. And I think that it's a great thing that they're making available to these women bodybuilders. And if you're a women bodybuilder and you're not doing the show, you're nuts, because I mean, even the second, third, fourth, fifth place are making a ton of money. So it's great for the sport. Should they merge the two divisions? I don't know. I mean, at this point, how many women's bodybuilders are left? I think that they, I think John probably brought up the best point. It's kind of got its own little fan base, and they're having their own competition, so to speak, to support the fan base at this point.
Let's move on now to our last and final topic of debate of the evening. Again, you're watching Iron Debate on rxmuscle.com. A lot of exciting content planned for you, our viewers, over the course of the next 40-plus days as we build up to the Olympia competition in Vegas. We are going to be wall-to-wall with all our athlete interviews, all our live coverage, our preview videos, and of course some surprises planned for the actual night of the competitions. Till then, we're going to have all sorts of interviews, all sorts of a build-up. So this is the place you're going to want to be. If you're not already registered, go now to the Muscle Central Forum on rxmuscle.com. It is free to register. That's where all the banter is going to take place. That's where all our previews, all our updates, all our promotions is going to be. Well, speaking of our good friend Christian Duke, for those of you who have not yet read it, go right now to rsmuscle.com. Of course, big news out of the bodybuilding world as muscular development in the ongoing Why Cut Back campaign. They drop Justin Compton. Now, if you keep in mind, Justin Compton, only 26 or 27 years old, one of the youngest bodybuilders in the game, and arguably one of the top, and many universally agree could be the face of the sport in the next decade or so. So we've seen athletes released from contracts before. We've seen them maybe in an older age, maybe towards the end of their career, but this is a head scratcher for many in the industry, and it's making a lot of people reflect upon the bodybuilding media industry, where it is now and where it's headed. So John, we're going to bring you in on this first. MD releasing Justin Compton. What did you make of that?
Well, I think it speaks to the realization that Bleckman had after he signed Dana Lynn Bailey to whatever contract that she's got. From what I understand, it's just an exclusive writing contract. It's not like the typical contract. But in analyzing that deal, her assuming whatever Bleckman's paying Dana Lynn Bailey is like putting another deck chair on a Titanic. It's meaningless.
That's the quote of the show right there.
I mean, these guys are making money hand over fist. They don't need what could Bleckman possibly be paying her? 10 grand a month? That's a drop in the bucket for them. And believe me, it's not 10 grand a month. So in that moment when Bleckman realized, and this is giant for him because it means he has to accept the fact that there's an actual internet out there and there's people on it. That deal benefited MD. It did not benefit Dana Lynn Bailey. Dana Lynn Bailey does not need MD. MD needs Dana Lynn Bailey. Dana Lynn Bailey can blow her nose, and that Kleenex is worth $10,000, and there's 150,000 people are going to bid on it on eBay. That's the kind of draw that they have. So if she's got an article in MD, Bleckman's rubbing his his little hot little hands together, emphasis on little, to realize that he's going to make this is a boon for MD. So what I think in he's dropping these athletes, he's not cutting back. What he's doing is he's looking to sign people that benefit him, not that he benefits them. So what he's going to be looking for are more Dana Lynn Baileys. He's not going to be looking to sign athletes that need his money to compete, that need his money to live, that contract means something to. I think it's a new dynamic now. The paradigm has shifted, and you're going to see MD only searching out people to sign that have a draw, that have a tremendous following on social media, that will bring eyeballs to the sinking ship.
Chris, what did you make of MD releasing Justin Compton?
Well, it's not a head scratcher. It's it's connected to what John said about signing Dana Lynn Bailey. I think it was a good move, and it was a business move, and it's a good move in that he's buying essentially the hope, because it's not a given, the hope that Dana Lynn Bailey's fans will migrate over to his website, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, or 10 minutes a day. So I can understand from that perspective, it's a good move. The idea that he signed Justin Compton was simply it came from the idea, I'm sure, that there was the expectation that he'd win the Arnold, and when he didn't win the Arnold, that's it. It's a business decision to let him go. Anyone can say whatever they want, and speculate, and I'm speculating, but, I bet my speculation is better than other people's speculation, because people say, well, you don't understand, contracts come and go and this and that, and, contracts come and go. But in this case, my belief is that he was signed with the expectation that he was going to win the Arnold.
Well, Chris, let me ask you a question.
When he wins the Arnold, then we can hype him to win the Olympia, and then we got the Olympia champion, and that helps MD's bottom line. It's always about the bottom line, and
right.
It should be about the bottom line, because, MD's not in business to, people aren't in business to, someone once said it's not church. It's not. It's to benefit their bottom line, their financial bottom line.
Right. Well, Chris, let me bring up something that John mentioned, and it's a very enlightening point. And again, we go back to what you've been very consistent about, and that is future of the sport, the sport of bodybuilding. John brings up a great point in the sense that, look, Dana Lynn Bailey, yes, she's a departure from what they've traditionally signed to their media contracts, bodybuilders, the top-end bodybuilders. This is more of a play to get her fans and really get the, I guess, so the social media generation now to be more invested in muscular development, given that she has a very large following and she represents that cool and that hip factor, her and her husband Rob. Is this a sign for the future of these media let's assume that we stick with the media contracts, and we'll get to that later on, but is this a troubling sign for bodybuilders in general, that their accomplishments on stage, their physique, their statures, their following is going to be outweighed by somebody with a giant social media following?
I've been saying it for a year on the radio that and I mean that. I'm concerned for the future of men's bodybuilding, because you can't be a professional, and sorry, but you can't. I'm a lawyer by day and I compete with Kai at night. You know what I mean? To be able to take it to that level, you have to have, it's not about, you have to have as few mental distractions as possible, because to be at that level, you have to wake up, and if the first thing you do when you wake up is think of your job, you are never going to be a great bodybuilder. That's just the way it works. You have to be able to wake up in a state of anxiety about your leg workout that day. It's anal, it's OCD, but that's what it takes to be a Mr. Olympia or a serious Mr. Olympia contender. So to do that, the money has to be there. You have to be able to make a living. And if print or contracts which used to be there are going away, and now we all know that supplement contracts aren't there for as many guys as there used to be, then pro bodybuilding's in trouble. I know pro bodybuilders right now who are on the fence, and they are tremendous bodybuilders. They're tremendous bodybuilders. They're on the fence in deciding, do I want to compete again because I have less income from it and I have other obligations, whether it be family obligations, work obligations. When will I be able to do it again?
Dave, let's get
So
you in.
you'll end up getting probably crappier pros. You know what I mean? Replacing those, people who would like to take it to the nth level.
Dave, let's get you in on this. Again, your immediate reaction, this is fresh news, your immediate reaction to MD dropping really one of the top in his prime bodybuilders in Justin Compton.
I predicted this. When I made my statement to Chris on the radio show that we were cutting back here, and that's where this all started from. A lot of people forget it. I said we're cutting back at RX Muscle. I'm cutting back my contest coverage. I'm cutting back on a lot of the spending we're doing because there's no return on investment. There's no ROI on it. And I said that we're going to really focus on original TV programming because that's really where my heart is at, and I feel that's more creative. It doesn't cost as much for us to do this content, and I feel that's the future of the sport. That's when Bleckman sent Chris that crazy text message. Why cut back? We're bigger than ever. More coverage. I said Bleckman will be knocking. As soon as I say I'm not covering contests, he will be dropping athletes like flies. Sure enough, it started with Jose Raymond, Aaron Clark, Cody Montgomery, Evan Centopani. Now you got Justin Compton, and there's probably people.
John De La Rosa.
Don't get
you get lost on how many more cut back.
The list is innumerable. Jay Cutler, right? He dropped almost everyone, and he's still waving the "I don't cut back" flag. So it doesn't surprise me that he dropped just Justin Compton. And you know what the truth is? The truth of the future of the matter is that we make fun of people who take selfies in the gym, and all the real true hardcore bodybuilders say people shouldn't be taking selfies. But you know what? That's how people are making money, taking selfies. Because the people who take the most selfies and got the most followers make the most money. Those are the people that these contracts, that these companies want to sign. The nutrition companies go after the people with the most social media following. Bleckman even now doesn't know what to do because he realized the same thing that I acknowledged over a year ago, is that there is no money left in this industry. You got to pay for a freaking press pass to go to a show. How could you make any money in this industry? So now social media is where it's at. So I guess if you're an athlete out there listening to this, you better take a lot of selfies and post it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, because you'll never make any money otherwise. That's the message that's being delivered.
Well, there's another aspect here regarding the MD mantra that no one's saying. It's that if you're going to get rid of one of the most promising pro bodybuilders on the circuit, why would you keep one who's arguably at the end of his career? Why would you keep Victor Martinez, who's been under contract for ages, whose competitive career has had some definitely lackluster moments by virtue of personal crisis, personal injury, personal tragedy, etc. Victor's career has been marred by expectations that weren't brought to fruition. So to use the argument that the expectation was that he was going to win the Arnold, and then he didn't win it, so he got cut. I don't think it holds as much water when you compare it to the athletes that are still there.
I got two words, John. Victor's glutes. That's why.
Well, John,
enough said.
John, let me ask you.
That just trumped the extra seat on the Titanic line.
John, I want to get both yours and Chris' thought on this. You're seeing what's happening now with the coverage in this industry. Now, obviously, with media contracts starting to slip by the wayside, where do you see bodybuilding media going over the course of the next 5 years as it's rapidly changed really over the last year? John, we'll go to you first.
I said this a couple of years ago to Dave. I said, stop covering shows. Don't do it. It's an absolute waste of money. Don't cover shows. Let those guys cover them. Let them spend their money. Let them argue. Let the Bleckman pay $1,500 or more to this. This is probably all his fault anyway. I can't imagine that he didn't start this. Yeah, Purr, he's got to be in the middle, but you don't have Purr anymore. Yeah, even more of a reason. But you got to have the guy in the middle. So he's probably paying for the center seat. They got wind of that. Go, yeah, let's just charge everybody. You know what? I think that as media outlets, we should just I'm not saying this out of disrespect for the industry. I'm saying it out of frustration because they put so many obstacles in front of us that I'm just going to say, you know what? It's obvious to me. You don't want us covering your show, so we're not going to. We're not going to cover shows. And I think if we as media create creative outlet, creative programming like this show, like the other shows that we have on RX Muscle, and focus on entertainment, lifestyle, practicality, things that people can use, apps that can go to the gym and help them work out. Those are the kinds of things that are going to be the future of bodybuilding media. Not all of us huddled into the same little tiny space trying to vie for the same camera angle to cover the same guy. There's too many people doing it. So I think for media outlets such as ours that have a tremendous personality, roster, a tremendous amount of experience and time in the industry among all of us put together, I think it's incumbent upon us to be the pioneers and move away from contest coverage, move away from the stricture into an area where we're completely free, we can do whatever we want, and we promote what the fans want. And we know contest coverage is saturated, and we know what people want. We know that people want entertainment. Our most popular segments on RX Muscle have always been the lifestyle stuff, bros versus pros, a day in the life. Those are the kinds of things that people want to see, where you're actually up close and personal with the personalities. This contest coverage mantra is played, and I think the only people you're going to see doing it anymore are the people with the biggest egos.
Chris, a thought from you just as far as where you see the media coverage, and I'm not just talking about contest coverage, but just as far as bodybuilding media in the next few years, as you've seen a change over the course of the last 12 months.
I mean, frankly, I don't think about where it's going. I don't think I don't think there's any real plan by people to where it's going. I do agree with Dave that original content like this show trumps anything you can find on any other website for 10 hours. I can guarantee you after this show, everyone I know in bodybuilding is going to say, "Oh, I saw you Romano and Dave on Iron Debate." I mean, you can't replace already the moments on this show I've had when Roden came on, when Jose has been on, just all the different people who have been on, where you've been able to really see unscripted their personalities. I think Roden, put his thoughts about where he sees himself at this year's Olympia on the line like you've never seen. You know what I mean? Dave gets that out of him. And Jose was, of course, Jose drinking a Schlitz while he's on the show. And, and that's what makes the show fun. And that's what makes this site different. And then where I say, there's, I don't think about the media. I don't think people really have a plan. I don't think people have any plan other than covering the shows, doing play-by-play, posting up pictures, and having stray, and this is nothing against people who come to sites, but stray, opinionated people from all parts of the world saying, "Oh, Phil Heath looked like shit. Kai Green looked like shit. Roden looked like shit." Well, you know what? They're in the Mr. Olympia. They 1, 2, 3, and they all have their strengths, and they all look incredible. And there's no insight into saying they all look like shit.
Dave, let's get you in on this again. You started RX Muscle in 2009. Why? Because you saw an opportunity to change the way that bodybuilding and the fitness world were covered. And obviously now it's grown to more of an interactive platform. But let's go back to where this all started. And that was earlier this week, MD, really one of the biggest names in the industry, dropping Justin Compton, one of the biggest bodybuilders in this industry. The way that you have seen coverage, media, evolve, change over the last year, where do you see this going now?
All right, I have the final word for you, because this really is the final word. I'll tell you exactly what the future is. No one else can predict it. I can predict it. I've seen it in my head for 10 years. Webcasting. Every single bodybuilding show should be available for webcast. There should be a way you can log into a specific site and pay or not pay, or however you want to set it up, to watch bodybuilding shows that are taking place all over the country simultaneously. I don't need to be the guy to do it. I'd love for the NPC News site to do it. They seem to have the best access. Obviously, Jim Mannion knows that. I'll teach you guys how to do it cheaply. I'll do it just because I want the service to be there for people. I don't want to do content. I would love to cover the big shows like the Arnold, the Nationals, the Olympia, the USA. I don't need to cover anything else. All right? I would rather sit home and watch it on my computer screen, on my Apple TV, on my TV. I'll teach you guys how to do it, to monetize it, so the promoters won't worry about losing ticket sales. You can charge a little fee. People will sit home and they'll pay for it. I promise you that. They do it in other sports. You can watch gymnastics, any gymnastics thing, anywhere you go. You go to the website there, you click on, and you pay a monthly fee, just like you pay for Netflix, and you can watch these shows. Once again, it's not that expensive. I could show them how to do it if they want to sit down with me. And that's where the future of media coverage is. You'll watch these things live streamed. I'll watch the live stream. John Romano and Chris Aceto watch the live stream. And we'll still be able to give you our feedback, because we can critique the show from the live stream. So let the organization run, or whoever wants to run the live streaming, we'll run the critique, and we'll do our TV shows. MD could do, I don't know, whatever they could do. What do they do over there, John? I don't even know what they do over there. Sean Ray could cry. I don't know. They could pretend to do a radio show. It doesn't matter to me. Everyone can find their own little niche. Blackman can sign all the people he thinks are important, and everyone can be happy. We should work together. This is a small industry. There's a place for everyone. There's a way to make money for everyone. And you know what? If one entity controls the live streaming, one entity has the original TV programming, another entity does their thing, you know what? Everyone will be happy, and the fans will love it. That's what it's all about, giving the fans what they want, the analysis. And that's where I see the media going. And when everyone can sit down and get together and break bread at the same table, we'll be able to accomplish this.
Well, that's going to do for the debate portion of the show. We do have a couple of questions. So first, we'll get this one for Chris. Chris, specifically, any updates on Roden?
Yeah, he looks big. I talked to, you know what, here's the update. He's 269 today, which is a good weight for him. I mean, he's big. And I literally had this in my head. He sent me pictures and I thought he looked really, he looks big and he's hard. And I thought if he can hold on to that size and get really peeled, he's going to be retardedly dangerous. And that was in my head. And Guy Sistanino went out to stay with him for a week. Him and jimmied up Charles Glass. They're going to do all the angles at Gold's Venice all week long. And I asked Guy, how's Sean look, by the way? And he said, almost verbatim, he said he's really, really round. And if he can keep this roundness and just really peel it up, he's going to be really dangerous. And that's the synopsis. You're going up against Phil Heath, who, I would love to hate, but, he's a great bodybuilder. So it's a challenge to take him down. And, but hopefully Sean will be at his best, and it's Vegas. You just got to let the chips fall. Can't have any fear going into the show, and he has none, which is a good thing. And see what the judges say.
John, we have one for you as well. The question is not your prediction, but who would you like to see win this year's Men's Olympia?
Who would I like to see? I would like to see Kai win the show. So no shade on Chris and Sean Roden, but I think Kai's been around long enough and has banged on the door enough times that I would like to see him get one. Sean can win next year, but I'd like to see Kai get one. I think Kai is, as far as a bodybuilder go, as far as where we are in the Olympia, it's with the departure from the classic is gone to the freak. So you want a freak to win. I mean, Jay was a freak. I don't think Phil is as much of a freak. It's certainly not as much as Kai, definitely not as much as Jay. But, Kai's a freak. He's got some amazing body parts. He's an incredible bodybuilder. He's a great, if you have the time, spokesperson if you want to listen to him. I think he's great for the sport. He should be Mr. Olympia at least once. And I'm saying that in the same way as I would say that Nasser deserved to be Olympia once, Kevin Levrone did, Sean Flex Wheeler did. These are guys that legitimately could have held the title and no one would have argued with it. And Kai fits that mold. And I just, as a fan of the sport, I would like to see Kai win one.
Well, John, I can say this on behalf of the entire RX Muscle community. From the comments we've been receiving all show long, and of course on the message board, it was excellent having you on the show, and we look forward to having you on Iron Debate, on Heavy Muscle TV, and all our other coverage, and especially on Olympia weekend. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
All right, Chris, great job as always. Of course, keep up the great work, and keep up the great work with Sean Roden. That is going to do it for this edition of Iron Debate. Special thanks to our producer, Johnny Styles. We have a lot to show you over the course of the next 40 days. But before we get to the Olympia coverage, in 2 weeks, it is going to be the 100th episode of Heavy Muscle TV. Think about that. This operation started in 2009, and now we are sitting on episode number 100. We are going to have an array of special guest appearances, some of the best clips from the history of Heavy Muscle TV. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, we're going to be announcing our guests, our special guests, all the features on the 100th episode of Heavy Muscle TV. Again, if you're not already a member on rxmuscle.com and the Muscle Central Forum, join us for all the latest updates, all the latest banter about the Olympia, and, of course, our Olympia coverage. Dave, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I want to just say one thing before we wrap up tonight. If you guys out there have a favorite Heavy Muscle TV episode, because I can't even remember them all. I'm trying to come up with the best ones. Email me, text me, post it on the forums. Maybe we'll make a thread. I'll have Kurt James make a thread. I want to know what your favorite episode is and why it was your favorite episode, what was the event in that episode, so that we can pull those clips, because it'll greatly help Johnny and my job, because we have to go through 100 episodes to pull the best ones. So let us know what your favorite episodes and why were.
So join us on the Muscle Central Forum. Discuss your favorite moments of Heavy Muscle TV. That's going to do it for Iron Debate. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Have a good night.